to easily choose a homeschool unit study spine, which gets you up and running with a unit study quickly. So how to choose an awesome and helpful and not useless unit study spine. And what is a unit study spine? I love unit studies. It's not the approach I started off with. Many homeschoolers don't realize when they start homeschooling, they choose a homeschool approach by default. But we have choices in the homeschool world. I chose probably what a lot of new homeschoolers start off with, which is sometimes the only thing we knew, and it's the only thing my mom used when she homeschooled, which is workbooks and textbooks. And that was not working for my family. So I moved to unit studies because it is a mastery approach, and because there is no hurry, and because we don't have to hurry up and complete them on someone else's timetable. So I want to tell you how and share with you how to choose a useful and not useless homeschool study spine. What is it? And to give you some tips. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Tina Robertson. I've homeschooled about 25 years. I have 3 homeschool grads. I'm still homeschooling. I'm mentoring Mr. Munchkin. He's about kindergarten and first grade, and it's so much fun planning these unit studies for the younger grades. It's kind of like having a do-over. But like I explained, unit studies is my #1 approach. My site is Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. I have numerous unit studies for you, lap books. I have a 7-step unique do-it-yourself homeschool planner. I have online courses, How to Homeschool Easy on my site, How to Homeschool Easy. That's enough about me. Let's jump into talking about these unit study spines. So first, let's identify what is a homeschool unit study spine. And I have my definition right here on my screen because I want to be sure not to miss a word for you. This is my definition. A homeschool unit study spine can be a living book, magazine, a mentor, reference book, or chart, art or art object, play, musical piece, brochure, movie, encyclopedia, or any other type of book, object, or person which is the main reference or authority for your unit study topic. Obviously, some of these resources you can see right away would be easier to use, like, for example, a book or even an authority on the subject, a person that knows about reptiles, a scientist, as opposed to perhaps just an inanimate object that you would have to look at and do research, but you still can use pieces of art and do research on them for a unit study. So to easily plan a superior unit study, these references will support ideas, projects, they'll help you create objectives and concepts about your main topic. Now, let me just quickly, just little sidetrack here. Let me explain what is a unit study for those that have not used it, or maybe have not heard of it, or maybe you think you may know what it is, but not quite sure. The unit study approach is where you take a topic which interests your kids, or you feel like, as an educator, you feel like you want to introduce to your children, whatever the topic is, and you build your subjects around that topic. Instead of having topics and fitting in resources, we are taking what's natural for kids to learn, which are things that they like, life, history, science, math, hands-on, exploring nature, and we're taking topics which interest our family to make a unique journey, and we're making subjects fit that topic. Now, I have made many mistakes in preparing my unit studies, and I'm going to share those with you so you avoid those as well. One of the mistakes made on unit studies is that we try to force a topic or a subject to a particular topic. And sometimes some topics are more history-based, more science-based, more geography-based, more artsy-based. So not all subjects will fit. So my number one tip is don't force a fit. Don't force a fit. If it doesn't fit naturally with your topic, you can cover it in some other resource that you have. Don't sweat the small stuff. Let the learning unfold naturally. So many topics, you would be surprised how there is a math tie-in, a language arts tie-in, an art tie-in, science tie-in, geography, values, whatever it is that you want to teach your children, there's always seems to be a tie-in. So that's one of the things that you don't want to do is try to force a fit. Now, the second thing you don't want to do when you do unit studies, which makes people run from them, is they get so much information, they don't know how to whittle it down, which is why I'm sharing this video and these tips on how to choose a superior spine. Okay, so you want to choose something that you can use that will be the mainstay all the way through and will guide you and will be a reference for all of the other topics. It doesn't mean you can't have other books and other resources, but you want to complete or go through this one resource you have because it tends to explain the information better. So what you're looking for in these spines, you're looking for background information about the topic. You're looking for ideas for hands-on projects. Now remember, you're just looking for ideas. I've used many books that didn't have hands-on projects in it, but when I read through and was getting familiar with the topic, I would think, okay, that's something we could do to illustrate hands-on what this concept's about. And also because these books tend to be multiple ages, I keep my reference books, which is another thing. It's money-saving tips because I can keep these reference books for years instead of grade-level textbooks, and I can use them for several years. So I tend to write in mine. Yes, I do. I write and I highlight and I put my thoughts out there about hands-on projects. I'll also look for words, vocabulary words that I can have my children illustrate, write, look the meaning up, use it in an essay. I also look for diagrams or charts if they're talking about sea explorers or pirates or history. Is there a timeline, a visual, something that we can kind of hang a hat on history? I look for those things too when I am looking at some of these resources. In addition, I look for questions in the text or at the end. So, for example, when I open up, say a book or a reference book, the topics in the front or the chapters, are they listed in question form? Or can you switch it to make it a question? Why is that important? Well, I find that's important because it helps with the mastery of the concept that you're teaching, and also it helps you to make lesson plans, and it gives you a point of where you're shooting for, so to speak. If you can turn that into a question, then you can share with your kids, well, this is what we want to find out about the night sky today. Or what do you want to find out about the night skies? How many names are there? How many planets? What is our solar system? You can turn what they're saying about describing what our solar system is to what is our solar system. Use those as teachable moments. So I look in the front of books or reference books when I'm deciding on the spine. So let me back up too. I just want to clarify one thing when I say spine, just because I don't want to lose anybody. I want to be sure you understand what a spine is. I've given you examples of what I use for a spine, but like I said, I want to back up and explain what a spine is. Basically, it is the backbone of your study, and it's the main resource for your chosen theme. Because like I said, what happens sometimes with people is that when homeschoolers, when they're creating unit studies, they just run from them because they get so much information. So the key to a successful unit study is to whittle down and narrow down to the one or two books or spines that you're going to use. This is the one you're going to come back to and is going to guide you. Here's the next chapter. Here's the next point. Here's the next concept that we want to learn. And that's what I mean. It's very important choosing the spine because it really sets you up for success or failure for a unit study. I've learned that the hard way. For example, language arts. Language arts is huge. It has so many different components in language arts that if you say, okay, we're just going to do a language arts type unit study, is it vocabulary words? Is it grammar, essays? Are we going to focus on British authors? What are we going to do? So sometimes those flip charts, they're laminated. You can get them from Amazon. They're like a trifold. I use those because they would give the major sweeping points so that when we covered our unit studies, we didn't come away with overwhelm. We didn't come away with, what was it we learned? This chart, this trifold chart, tended to be my spine if I was going to do a quick unit study about language arts. One would be about grammar, one would be about essay. Some of them are even titled English, which means they cover a little bit of grammar and parts of speech and some tips about writing. So whatever your topic's going to be, you do want to have something. A lot of homeschoolers say, well, I have something really exhaustive, this huge encyclopedia. Well, sometimes that's too big. So think smaller when it comes to a spine. Think smaller. What can I be sure that my children can walk away learning these 3 or 4 points? It doesn't mean all the time. It doesn't mean that's the case all the time. Some topics are more leaned toward encyclopedias, like the human body. If you want to learn about the different types of systems, you could stay on that for a long time, or you could just choose one system in the human body and stay on that. So it really does depend what your topic is. Now, some of my favorite publishers, one of my favorite science homeschool unit studies spine publishers is Nomad Press. And the reason I like them is, like I was explaining to you earlier, is they have one topic per book: the water cycle, rivers and streams, backyard biology, rivers and ponds. They've already narrowed down for you a considerable amount of information so that your unit study is doable. It's on the topic your children want to go to. You still can go down these little rabbit trails, but you have this framework and it's telling you, here's the next concept to learn on this particular type of subject when you're using the table of contents or as you're going through the book. Robotics, skulls and skeletons, energy. These are some of my favorite ones. Like I explained earlier, DK is another one of my favorite ones. Now, sometimes you just need encyclopedias, like if it's about art or if it's about mammals, and especially the ocean. There's a lot to learn about the ocean. So sometimes you do want to get a pretty comprehensive encyclopedia so that if your children want to go down a little rabbit trail, you have extra resources for that. Even like space. I mean, that's a lot to cover in astronomy or space. There's a lot of concepts to cover there, from the inventions to the famous scientists, the famous men and women who made changes, to the night skies, to the day skies. There's a lot to cover. So sometimes those are good to have. But the point is, you'll never waste your money on unit study spines if you buy them for multiple ages. And that's another reason why I love homeschool unit studies. Besides the fact it's mastery, meaning my kids want to stay on a subject long, and we may not even cover that topic, not even for another couple of years, because we have just really stayed on it for a long time and really just delved into it deeply. And that really is the beauty of unit studies when you choose the right spine. Sometimes even, like I was explaining, those flip charts for language arts, you want something more slim. The Peterson field guides, field trip. Yeah, we would take many field trips on those too, but the Peterson field guides are wonderful for nature. And they have, some would be just like mammals and some would be mushrooms. Just again, you see they're isolated just on one particular topic. Some are even national parks. So that's the beauty of choosing something that just has the one theme on it. Now, let me talk about living books for just a little bit too, because it's so important to have options for a living book when you're doing a unit study. Sometimes I've been able to use a living book alone, and sometimes I add a living book to a reference book. Now, let me explain what I mean by living book, because That is a term that's coined by the Charlotte Mason approach. And so you can see, you can add in other approaches, parts or features of other homeschool approaches that fit the one that you want to do. So a living book really contains two important things to me. It's really written by an author, authority, or an author on the topic who is an authority on whatever the topic is. And it's really written in a narrative form, like a story form. And they would explain and give vivid details, which really engages the reader. For example, I think about gardening. I'm terrible at gardening. I love it and I love seeing it. But every year I do the same thing. I kill it all. But it doesn't keep me from loving it or wanting to read about it. And so a living book that is from a gardener, she has a green thumb or he has a green thumb. I love their enthusiasm. I love their tips. And it helps me to get excited about it instead of a boring textbook that would tell me something else to do that just does not really engage me. And so a living book brings whatever topic you're wanting to talk about, it brings it alive. So you can use a living book with a reference book. But one of the best things about a living book is that a reader doesn't even realize that he's learning facts in a natural way. And that's why I love choosing living books with all of my unit studies. They don't even realize they're learning about gardening or history or the rainforest or civil wars or frogs or toads, just in a natural way without looking in a boring textbook. Living books are very opposite of textbooks. And so that's the difference, because they explain subjects in a story form. So a living book alongside a reference book always worked for my family. It was key to covering almost any subject in a unit study. And the beauty of the living book is that you have your language arts already written, so to speak, right there in your living book. You can take the words, the vocabulary, the spelling, any of those things are naturally in that book that you want to expand in on the study with your kids. So another one of my publishers that I really enjoy, or I say a publisher that I enjoy, is the Chicago Review Press. They have books like World War II for kids, Native American history for kids, code cracking, heading west, beyond the solar system. And those books are usually filled with mounds of information, lots of vocabulary words, lots of projects. And then if you choose one of those books alongside a living book to go with it, you have the start for a beautiful unit study that your kids and your family will succeed. Those are just a few of my unit study spines that I enjoy. And just remember, spines can be used for many ages, and it means I divide that price by how many ever years I'm using it with. So don't think if something costs $50 or $60, oh, that is a lot of money, but think how many years are you going to get out of that book? And even if you come back and even if you cover just a few chapters in that in your unit study and your children want to go on, you have the next few chapters you can build on in that book, say another 6 months or the next year. And so that's the reason why I love unit studies, because my money seemed to go further, and we kept these living books, reference books, and we just filled our house with them instead of a lot of useless, sometimes curriculum, but I love curriculum too. But we also had curriculum for subjects. Sometimes I found that math wasn't always easily covered how I want it to be covered in the unit studies, so I stopped sweating it. And we just would cover math in a separate curriculum, and then we'd start on a unit studies. If I had an opportunity to incorporate math naturally into our unit studies, I would do that. But otherwise, I stopped sweating it or making a forced fit, and I would just use something separate from it. For the unit study, so they could be sure and get their math in each day. Okay, those are my tips for homeschool spines for a quick and successful unit study. I will add some of my links at the end of this video down at the bottom. And too, if you have any questions about the unit studies, just let me know, because like I explained, it's my very favorite way to be able to do homeschool. In addition, don't forget my site where I have numerous unit studies on there without cost. I'll put the link down there too in the bottom. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.